Hey you guys, it's me Michelle from Awake Society, and I wanted to do a quick video on depression recovery. Many of you have reached out to me asking for me to do a video on this topic, so here I am. If you see me looking down, it's because I have my notes here in my hand. Alright, so I'm just gonna start right off. The first step for depression recovery for me personally was being honest with myself. And it was accepting responsibility for my decisions and my actions. It was to be honest with myself and admit that I had identified myself with a victim mentality. For those of you that have been following me for a while now, know that I grew up in an abusive home, and I went through a lot of unfair treatment, and because of that treatment I fell into this why me mentality, the victim mentality, that you know, what did I do to deserve this kind of thing. And I didn't realize that by identifying with that type of mentality, it just allowed me to stay in a position of pain and suffering. It allowed me to stay in a position where I just wasn't growing. The second step was asking for professional help. I went to a psychologist and I went to a psychiatrist, and I'll get into the details of that later on in the video. So I want to mention it as one of the first things because I think it's important that professional help is amazing. You know, it's a professional who not only studied to help people overcome difficult situations, but it's a person that is seeing your circumstances from an outside point of view. Somebody who isn't tainted with all the trauma and the difficulties that you've been through. So they're able to give you advice and the tools necessary to move on in your recovery and get better. Okay, the other thing that I did in my recovery was letting go of toxic people. And this is extremely important, because the people who you surround yourself will either make you or break you. There's this saying that my mom used to tell me, dime con quien tú andas y yo diré con quien tú eres. So basically in English, the translation would be something like, tell me who you are with or who you're hanging out with, and I'll tell you who you are. I don't know if there's an English saying for that, but I really didn't believe her. I was like, oh, she doesn't know my friends. She doesn't know, you know, the people who I hang out with. Who is she to say this? But it wasn't until I got older that I was like, this is really true. Because I realized that the people that I was surrounding myself with were toxic. They were the type of people who were always gossiping, the type of people who were always envious, the type of people who would always talk bad about other people's accomplishments. And when I started my journey of recovery, I was obviously in a different mental position. I wanted to take the steps to grow and recover and achieve my goals. I actually had a list of things I wanted to do that I just wasn't doing because of my depression. And every time I was able to overcome an obstacle and get closer to my goal, these friends would not only not be proud of me and not cheer me on, but these people would find the smallest thing to point out to me in order to make my goal seem insignificant. These people would say comments like, oh, that's just because you're lucky, oh, that's just because you're smart, and they didn't acknowledge the hard work that I was literally putting in daily to get better from my depression. And that's when I realized, like, I had to let these people go. They were serving me, they were no longer serving me, and so I had to let them go. Was it painful? Of course. Was it hard? Hell yeah. It got to a point where I felt lonely. I didn't have friends. I didn't know who to hang out with, you know. I just felt lonely. But as I continued through my recovery, I used that as an advantage. Now that I was alone and I didn't have any friends, it gave me the opportunity to learn about myself, to do things for myself, by myself, because I wanted to, not because other people were forcing me, or maybe not forcing me, but coercing, like manipulating me into doing things. And then as time passed by, eventually I did meet people who had similar mindset to me, and people who were good to me, and those are the people who I call my friends now. Okay, I have my third note here is staying single. The reason why I decided to stay single was because I realized that I would go into one relationship after another with the same type of guy that had the same behavioral patterns, the same type of guy that treated me the same way, that never respected me, the same type of guy, you know, it wasn't until I was able to stop myself and say, okay, not every guy is like this. What am I doing that I'm falling into the same type of relationships? And that's when I realized that due to the abuse and the trauma that I grew up with in a toxic home, I defined love in a toxic definition. I defined love in a toxic way. The first way I saw love in my life was my biological parents being mean to each other, provoking each other, doing things to make each other uncomfortable. And even though I wasn't consciously doing things to make the other person or my partner at the time uncomfortable, it was something unconscious. So I knew that I had to work on this in order to have a good relationship the next time somebody who's worth it comes into my life. So that doesn't mean that I'm single, but that doesn't mean I'm not willing to date. It's just that through recovery, I've learned to love myself and respect myself enough to not just let any guy walk into my life. And not until I get to know a guy who I could see has the same values and morals and is willing to treat me the way I should be treated, I'm just not going to date anybody at the moment. Okay, exercising. So I know you guys are extremely tired of hearing the exercising story, and to be honest, I was just like one of you. I didn't really start exercising until my psychologist was like, you need to start exercising, and he explained to me that the brain releases endorphins and happy chemicals that improve your mood and maintains you in a good mood. So that way you're not always, in a roller coaster of emotions. So I thought to myself, what do I have to lose? I started exercising by simply putting on some gym clothes and going to the track and walking. And as I started to notice myself feeling better, that's when I started doing cardio. I started doing Zumba. I started doing Tai Bo. I started doing other exercises. And you really do feel good. It's not until you actually start exercising that you see the benefits of how good you feel, like you don't really believe it, The trick here for you is to find a type of exercise that you enjoy. If you're exercising just to exercise, or you're just exercising because I'm telling you to exercise, it's not going to work out. Find something that you enjoy doing that gets your body moving. It could be dancing, it could be salsa dancing, it could be riding a bike, it could be hiking, it could be karate, it could be soccer, it could be any type of thing. As long as you're getting your body moving and sweating around and you're having a fun time, that's the best thing you could do for your depression. Okay, eating healthy. Again, another thing that you most likely are tired of hearing, and it was something that I was tired of hearing of, not only my psychologist, but just the adults around me. Why don't you just eat better? You're going to feel better. And I was like, well, what do you know if eating better makes me feel better? I was very close-minded and rebellious in such a way like that. But again, through therapy, my psychologist made me realize that food does play an important role in not only how you feel physically, but in your mental state. So I was the type that I was an emotional eater, and I will admit to this day I still struggle with this, but I was an emotional eater in the sense that one little smallest tint of stress in my day had me running to Burger King, had me running to KFC, to Popeyes. I would go to the supermarket and buy a bunch of ice cream and chocolate. I would go to the candy store and buy as much candy as possible. And I had to admit I had a binging problem. I would binge eat crazy, and it was so much food that I would eat that I would do it obviously when I was home alone, or I would eat in my car. And if I was eating here at home, I would obviously hide my food because it's embarrassing the amount of food that I was eating. And not only that, it's not normal. I knew that if my parents saw the amount of food I was eating, they would have been concerned. So part of my recovery was changing my relationship with food. And it wasn't until I actually started eating vegetables and fruits. And you guys, when I mean healthy eating, it's not sad healthy. I mean, it's not sad salad eating type of food. It's not like you're going to be eating salad every day. There's so many amazing dishes and plates you could create with healthy foods. Everything from different type of potatoes to different types of salads. There's even healthy sausages. There's lean meat. There's fish. There's all kinds of things that you could implement in your diet that taste good, and so many types of seasoning. Through healthy eating, I discovered so many seasonings because the seasonings that I would use at home was really high in sodium and stuff like that, and it forced me to go to the supermarket and look for different seasonings, and you are able to create a delicious plate that you feel fulfilled, you feel full, you feel good after you eat. And not only that, you are what you eat. And it wasn't until after at least maybe a week or two of eating really good that I realized the amount of energy that I was starting to have. I was no longer fatigued. I was able to get out of bed. Not only that, but I have a autoimmune disorder that causes me a lot of pain, and through eating healthy I noticed that the amount of pain that I was suffering per day started to minimize and minimize and minimize. And now I wouldn't trade it for a thing. Now I don't I don't strain myself. I don't deny myself certain foods. For me, every Friday or Saturday of the week is a cheat day, which means if I'm craving something that isn't as healthy, I'll eat it that day, and I'll eat it moderately. Why? Because again, I'm an emotional type of person that attaches their emotions to food. So if I deprive myself, the next moment that I'm stressed out, I'm gonna be at the store buying a shit ton of unhealthy stuff and jugging it down. But if I allow myself at least once a week to eat something that I'm craving, that'll keep me under control, and I won't be going running to the store and, you know, just wasting my check on junk food. Okay, here I have getting organized and decluttering your home. Believe it or not, your environment, especially your room or the place that you spend your most time in your house, has a indirect impact on how you feel. You don't really realize that the mess in your house or room is actually causing mental harm. So I had to organize myself because when I was in the deepest part of my depression, I didn't have any energy to even pick up anything from the floor in my room. In order to get to my bed, I had to jump and skip around my room because the whole floor was messy. It was clean clothes, dirty clothes, book bags, books, cups. You couldn't imagine it. It was just a mess, really. And I didn't even have the whole bed to me because it was just cluttered. I would throw everything in the corner of my bed and just have like a little tiny area to sleep in. And not only that, the disorganization had me stressed because I just couldn't find anything that I needed. So I took 2 to 3 days to clean my room. The first day was just taking out trash bags, putting in one section the things that were in good condition that I was going to donate, and the things that were expired and that no longer worked or that were word out, not in good condition to donate. So through that, you guys, I literally took out like 6 to 7 trash bags of just trash and maybe 2 to 3 bags of things worth donating. After I took out all that junk, I had enough room in my room to organize the things that I wanted. So I went to this store, and we have this store in Puerto Rico called Pepe Ganga, which is kind of like a Dollar Tree store in a way, where you could buy, you know, things for your house like organizing boxes, you know, shelves and things like that at an affordable price. And that's what I did. I bought boxes and things to organize everything in my room. And ever since then, I feel good. My room is now a place that I could go to and meditate and feel calm even after a stressful day. Now, I will admit, I'm not a perfect person. There will be days where my room is messy, but since I don't have so much clutter, so much stuff in my room, it's not a hassle. It's just simply of putting things back where they go. Okay? Now, another thing I have here is maintaining a hobby. This is extremely important because depression, you're spiraling in your negative thoughts. Negative thoughts. That's all you think, and these are the type of thoughts that are extremely, you guys, extremely difficult to handle. Like, they're intrusive. You're like, I can't stop thinking. So by having a hobby and a form of distraction, it allows you a brief moment to focus on other things other than your negative thoughts. For me, it's reading, blogging, movies, books, nature, and meditating. But these doesn't have to be necessary for you. It could be writing poetry, it could be art, it could be sculpting, it could be hiking, camping, it could be martial arts, it could be anything. Just find something that you enjoy doing that allows you for at least 30 minutes to not be thinking about your problems. Okay, here I have vitamins and medication. Now, the reason why I want to bring this to your attention is because medication doesn't make you weak. Medication isn't something that you necessarily have to rely on your whole life. when I went to my psychiatrist, I was a bit nervous because I was kind of ignorant in a lot of ways. I thought to myself, well, I don't want to be addicted to a medication, or I don't want to be stuck on a medication that I will have to depend on my whole life to even function, or I don't want a medication that gives horrible side effects, or a medicine that increases my already existing suicidal tendencies and ideations that I already had. But if you find a good psychiatrist that knows what they're doing, it's not going to be a problem. My psychiatrist, she's very holistic, which is what I love about her. She did prescribe antidepressant and anti-anxiety meds to me, but she prescribed me something that is not as addictive, something that if you do have secondary side effects, it's not something that will take over your life. It's something that you're going to be able to handle. And not only that, she prescribed to me different types of vitamin and natural medicines and herbs that were going to help me with my depression. So her plan was put me on medication so I could function and have the energy to even do something about my depression, while at the same time giving me natural medicine, so that way when I start improving and getting into a better state, she starts lowering the medication, and it'll eventually get to a point where I was in no medication and I'm just on the vitamins, which is the way that I am now. And it's amazing, because that's when I realized I don't need anything artificial to make me feel better, as long as I am putting in the work. Now, I don't want anybody to feel bad. If you do have a mental disorder where you do need medication for the rest of your life, again, do not feel guilty, do not feel weak, do not feel offended for what I'm saying. I'm just simply saying it because of the type of depression that I have. I don't have schizophrenia, for example. That's a different story. Now, another thing is questioning my cognitive distortions. I did a video, I think it was 2 weeks ago, on this topic, so if you want to know more information about it, you could click on that video. But basically, cognitive distortions is these negative, unrealistic, distorted perspectives and beliefs and thought patterns that not only affect your behavior, but affects the way you see yourself, the world, and those around you. And if you see the cognitive distortion video, I had all of those cognitive distortions throughout the day. And one of the tricks for me for my recovery was to question those cognitive distortions. Like, what evidence do I have to demonstrate that this person really hates me? Or are these thoughts even helping me? Will this even matter in 5 years? Or if a person's in my same situation, will they think the same way? I would constantly be questioning my thoughts, and eventually got to a point where not only would I catch myself automatically whenever I would start thinking negatively again, but it allowed me to reframe my inner dialogue about myself in the world, and it turned from one that it's negative to one that is positive yet realistic. Okay. Another thing was sleeping well. With depression, I obviously had insomnia. I would sleep 2 to 3 hours per day, and that really made things worse. And the less that I would sleep, the more suicidal I would be, the less energy I would be, the more attitude problems I had toward my friends and family. I mean, for me, if I don't sleep well, even if it's for one day, my whole day is off. And in order to sleep better, again, with a medication that my psychiatrist gave me, until I was able to control my sleeping pattern, and now I don't need medication to sleep. If I am having difficulty sleeping, I take melatonin, which is a natural medicine that will help you sleep. Sleeping is very, very important, you guys. Not only does it impact your mood, it impacts your suicide ideation, it even impacts your memory. Those with depression have memory problems. They're forgetful. They have a hard time concentrating. And it's because of that, the sleep. If your brain doesn't get the rest it needs, you're just not going to function the way you should be. Okay? If you guys want me to make a video on tips and tricks on how to improve your sleep hygiene, let me know, because there were so many things that I did, a part of the melatonin and sleep medication, that has allowed me to continue sleeping good throughout the years. Okay, another thing for my recovery was saying yes to what I truly want and saying no to the things I didn't want. And this is something really difficult, especially if you are like me, who have some kind of codependency issues, who has a hard time putting in boundaries. I started to say no to what I didn't want. And that actually gave room for me to grow as a person, to learn about myself, to do the things that I wanted. That's how I discovered myself. I put aside the things that everybody was telling me I had to do, and I started to do things that I wanted to do. And through that, I discovered my passion. And through my passion, it was an outlet for me to express my depression in a healthy way. And before I knew it, depression wasn't any longer on, holding me down. It was just something that was part of my past. Another thing is to reduce stress. Now, stress and depression, they don't go along, you guys. Like I said, I was the type of person that with a minimal stress, not only did I go running to eat, minimal stress for me was something I just didn't know how to handle. I didn't know how to have the tools. So another part of my recovery was to learn to plan ahead, was to learn to have an agenda, was to learn to set aside things that weren't important and and do things that were actually important for me. And not only that, I stopped doing things that weren't my responsibility. And by doing that, the levels of stress in my life lowered drastically. Okay, here I have avoid alcohol and drugs. I really didn't have a problem with drugs, even though every now and then I did do it. That could be another story for another moment if you guys want to hear about that, because I did rely on certain things to feel artificially happy. Alcohol is not good, you guys. I'm not saying do not drink alcohol ever again. Like, if you like your wine, you like your wine. If you like going out with your friends and drinking every now and then, fucking do that. There's nothing wrong with that. But try to avoid constant and too much consumption, because alcohol distorts your reality, and that with depression is lethal. A lot of people have unfortunately ended their life under the influence of drugs and alcohol, along with depression. My biological father was an alcoholic, so when I caught myself buying alcohol too frequently and like drinking to numb my pain, I knew that I was exhibiting the same pattern my dad did, and I didn't want to go down that road. So for me personally, I eliminated it completely, to a point where I was healthy enough to control myself. So now I don't say no to alcohol or anything. If I go out with my friends, I'll have a beer or two. If I go out with my family, I'll have a cup of wine. But that's because I'm in a mental state where I am not using it to numb emotions. Okay, stop procrastination. And this is really, you guys, really hard with depression, because you don't want to do shit, you guys. You don't want to do anything. You don't have energy, period. No joke, you guys. I could go 5 days with no showering, no washing my face, not changing my clothes. I would just go days without doing anything, because I couldn't. I just didn't have the energy to do it. And because of that, I procrastinated so much, you guys, to the point that I was at the last minute finishing homework and projects that I had to turn in the university. I was at the last minute going to doctor's appointment, and it was a complete mess, because since I procrastinated, every single aspect of my life was behind. And when reality would hit me in the face that I had to actually take action, I was a complete mess, and I was a stress. And again, you guys, you know me, stress lethal for me. So it would just make me spiral out of control. I would get more negative, I would get more suicidal, I would have really bad coping habits. If you guys want me to talk about that as well, the different type of bad habits that you can develop through depression and what to do about it, I could happily do that. So let me know in the comment section below. And what else do I have here? Okay, I don't have anything else, but before I go, it's important to not identify with victim mentality. Do not identify with depression. It's okay to know what your diagnosis is, because you could understand why you behave a certain way and why you do certain things. But as long as you continue identifying with it, it'll be harder for you to recover from depression, you guys. I used it as an excuse, in the sense, like, if I would do something bad, it would be like, oh, that's okay. That's because I'm depressed. And I would just not do anything about it. But once I let go of that identity and tell myself depression no longer identifies me, that is not my reality anymore, that gave me the power to identify as somebody stronger, somebody who doesn't necessarily have to be every single day struggling with depression. So that would be about it, you guys. This is a topic that I could talk about for hours and hours and days. If there's anything else that you would like to know about depression that I have not covered in this video, please let me know in the comment section below, because I will be jotting down your questions and comments in my notebook, so that way I could maybe do a live video or do a video dedicated for each questions that you guys would like me to answer. Bye.